Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Director of the Defense Media Activity, Mr. Hal Pittman, and the Commandant of the Defense Information School, Colonel Richard McNorton, welcome to this morning's Hall of Fame induction ceremony. I'm retired Air Force Master Sergeant J.G. Buzanowski, your Master of Ceremonies. Please rise for the arrival of the official party, the presentation of the colors, the national anthem, and the invocation.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order, on! Right, peace! Forward, on!
As your faith tradition allows, please allow me to join us in prayer. Let us pray. Creator of humanity, we give you thanks for allowing us to gather at this place and at this time. We give you thanks also for the lives of Tanya, Jerry, Stacy, Glenn, and Kathleen. And we thank you for the abilities that you have given to them that have endeavored and made lasting contributions within the area of the military, public service, industry, academia, in the areas of communication and the visual information field. Thank you for these gifts and these talents that have allowed them to accurately communicate. Be with us during this time as we celebrate and we recognize the accomplishments that they have made. In your holy name we pray these things. Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you, Mr. Rakoff, for that beautiful rendition of the national anthem, and Navy Captain Chaplain Michael Baker for that heartfelt invocation. We'd like to offer a special welcome to the members of our official party, Director of the Defense Media Activity, Mr. Hal Pittman, the Press Secretary for the Department of Defense, and today's keynote speaker, Brigadier General Pat Ryder, the Commandant of the Defense Information School, Colonel Richard McNorton, and the DINFO Senior Enlisted Leader, Command Sergeant Major Michael Carden. We'd also like to welcome the DMA Command Senior Enlisted Leader, Chief Master Sergeant Jason David, the DINFO's Deputy Commandant, Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Lindy Singleton, the Sergeant Major of Army Public Affairs, Sergeant Major Stephanie Carl, the Director of Public Affairs, Office of the Secretary of the Air Force, Mr. Jerry Wren, the Air Force Public Affairs Career Field Manager, Chief Master Sergeant Crystal Perkins. We're also happy to see a former DINFOS Commandant, retired Army Colonel Larry Eisenagel, as well as other DINFOS Hall of Famers. From the class of 2021, retired Army Command Sergeant Major Jim Gilbert, and from the class of 2022, retired Marine Corps Captain Dale Dye, and retired Army Command Sergeant Major Emma Krauser. Finally, to the families, friends, and special guests of our inductees, here and online, welcome to today's ceremony. Since its establishment in 1964, the Defense Information School has trained and educated soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and Guardians, as well as DoD civilians, international students, and professionals from other government agencies in the principles of public affairs to prepare them to communicate effectively on behalf of their nations and services. With the consolidation of the Defense Visual Information School and the Defense Photography School in 1998, DINFOS also began training world-class visual information and broadcast maintenance professionals. Today, DINFOS continues its tradition of excellence, preparing public affairs and visual information professionals to communicate with consequence in a rapidly evolving information environment. Our distinguished honorees are part of that proud tradition. They are accomplished in their respective fields and have made extraordinary and lasting contributions at the highest levels in the military, public service, industry, leadership, academia, and entertainment. These honorees represent the very best of our profession, and today they take their rightful place in the DINFOS Alumni Hall of Fame. The 2023 Hall of Fame inductees are retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Tanya Bradsher, retired Air Force Brigadier General, the late H.J. Jerry Dalton, Air Force veteran Stacy Pearsall, Marine Corps and Air Force Reserve veteran Glenn Proctor, and Army veteran Kathleen Rem. Now it's my honor to introduce the Commandant of the Defense Information School, Colonel Richard McNorton, for welcoming remarks and to introduce today's keynote speaker.
Good morning, DINFOS. And welcome to our distinguished guests, family, and friends. Today we are inducting 5 new members into the DINFOS Hall of Fame. These DINFOS alumni are being inducted for their exceptional service and accomplishment in the military, in the private sector, and to our nation. The individuals we're recognizing today are linked by more than just their ties to the Defense Information School. Their careers and accomplishments are marked by common themes: leadership, vision, selfless service, excellence, innovation, and transformational impact. All of us who are DINFOS alumni, and that's most of us in this room, should be proud to be in the same company as these dedicated servant leaders. They are part of a rich and proud heritage that makes this school absolutely unique among DoD training institutions. DINFOS is where we train, educate, develop, and inspire the next generation of military communication professionals. It's a special place. Those who have graduated from here are known across the Joint Force as DINFOS trained killers. In celebrating our Hall of Fame inductees and their accomplishments, we also celebrate this amazing institution and its 59-year legacy of excellence. Finally, I want to offer my heartfelt congratulations to all of our Hall of Fame inductees today, and thank you for honoring us with your presence. At this time, I'm pleased to introduce Brigadier General Patrick Ryder. He is currently serving as the Department of Defense Press Secretary at the Pentagon.
All right. Can't escape the podium. All right. Well, Admiral Pittman, Mr. Wren, Colonel McNorton, Command Sergeant Major Carden, Sergeant Major Carl, Chief Perkins, Chief David, and of course our distinguished guests here in the front row and their special guests, as well as our Hall of Famers from previous years, friends, family, and all those watching live from live stream around the world. Good morning and thank you very much for being here today. It's always an honor to be at the Defense Information School, doubly so today as we induct the DINFOS Alumni Hall of Fame class of 2023. Today's ceremony is particularly noteworthy in that this year marks the 10-year anniversary of the DINFOS Hall of Fame, which was established in 2013 to honor distinguished Defense Information School alumni, which was a great initiative started during then Commandant Colonel Jeremy Martin's tenure. And as our MC, Master Sergeant Buzanowski, highlighted, those individuals inducted into the Hall of Fame represent the very best of our profession, and this year's honorees are a testament to that fact. As you'll hear today, each of them has exemplified communication excellence during their professional careers, as well as a deep commitment to the service of others. Now, those who have attended, taught at, or supported DINFOS know very well that effective communication is at the heart of what this institution is all about. I will never forget one of my own DINFOS instructors drilling into the minds of my classmates that public affairs helps leaders lead and follow through effective two-way communication, and the DoD principles of information to include maximum disclosure, minimum delay. I think I have a tattoo of that somewhere on my arm. But whether we're talking about print or broadcast journalism, photography, videography, visual information, or any other aspect of professional communication, DINFOS has served as a cornerstone for educating and training our joint force to be effective communicators since it was established in 1964. And the results really do speak for themselves. Nearly 60 years later, and this schoolhouse is still going strong, preparing DINFOS-trained killers to perform the public affairs, visual information, and broadcast engineer maintenance missions worldwide with a sterling reputation for excellence. And because it's an international school, that well-earned reputation is global. On multiple occasions during my career, to include in this current position, I've encountered public affairs professionals from international partner nations who have unsolicited approached me and shared their positive experience attending DINFOS, instantly creating a common bond, a mutual frame of reference, and enhancing our ability to immediately start working together and solving tough communication problems. That is the power of this school. That is the power of DINFOS. Now, effective public communication has always been important within the Department of Defense and within the United States government, and it's even more so today. As we confront the many national security challenges that confront our nation in an ever-evolving 24/7 communication environment where there seems to be an infinite number of sources of information competing for public attention, the ability to clearly, precisely, and effectively communicate to key internal and external audiences remains a critical requirement, but also an important capability. And at all levels of the Department of Defense, senior leaders continue to rely on public affairs and visual information professionals to help think through complex problems, provide trusted communication counsel and advice, and help communicate policies and actions into words and images for U.S. and international audiences. So today, whether it's the conflict in Ukraine, deterring PRC aggression in the Indo-Pacific region, preserving freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz, or supporting state and local authorities with natural disaster response, just to name a few, effective public communication is vital to enabling public understanding, building trust with key stakeholders, and countering potential disinformation. And in many cases, if not most, there's likely a DINFOS graduate involved somewhere in the mix, developing communications plans, writing press releases or stories, capturing still or video imagery, or briefing the public and the media. Even outside the military, as evidenced by today's inductees, we see DINFOS graduates who have retired or departed military service who continue to serve as communicators elsewhere within the government, or providing independent press reporting on crucial public issues, working within think tanks, industry, academia, myriad other institutions and organizations that play an important role. And as the challenges in front of us continue to get more and more difficult, the need for effective and experienced professional communicators continues to increase. I will tell you that in my own experience as a public affairs officer, early in my career, it seemed like PA had a hard time and had to fight to get to the table. Today, however, across all branches of the services, senior leaders cannot seem to get enough public affairs and visual information support. Demand consistently exceeds supply. So I guess in that way, it's good to finally be popular. But this also underscores the importance and the emphasis that is placed today on capabilities that people like graduates from this school contribute as professional communicators, and on the operational effects that we bring to bear as we enable a wide variety of operations throughout the Department of Defense and the U.S. government, enabling a wide variety of skills, expertise, and knowledge that we provide on a daily basis. And ultimately, it underscores why DINFOS has played and continues to play an essential role within the Department of Defense, the U.S. government, and beyond. To put it simply, this school and its cadre of instructors and staff are a national treasure. And speaking of national treasure, the DINFOS Alumni Hall of Fame class of 2023 is very impressive. As I mentioned earlier, the careers and accomplishments of each of our honorees truly does epitomize communication excellence and service before self. In a moment, we're going to learn a little bit more about each of our honorees, but let me just briefly highlight the caliber of DINFOS alumni that we're recognizing today. Retired Air Force Staff Sergeant Stacy Pearsall continues to tell the story of service members through her critically acclaimed PBS series, drawing on her own experiences as a combat photographer. Retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Tanya Bradshear serves those who served our nation as the Chief of Staff for the Department of Veterans Affairs, having previously led in multiple high-level communication positions at the Pentagon, the White House, and the Department of Homeland Security. The late retired Air Force Brigadier General H.J. Jerry Dalton blazed a trail for future Air Force public affairs leaders through his exceptional performance and his demonstration of what a career public affairs officer can bring to the table. Marine Corps and Air Force veteran Mr. Glenn Gunny Proctor helps people and businesses succeed as an executive coach with a distinguished career as an award-winning journalist and author, editor, educator, and Vietnam vet. And Army veteran Ms. Kathleen Rem helps lead public affairs for one of the most complex and important organizations in the Department of Defense, drawing on her deep experience as a DoD journalist, supporting 3 Secretaries of Defense, and as an Army sergeant with extensive field time in support of contingency operations. In sum, it's no wonder why each of these DINFOS graduates is being inducted today into the Hall of Fame. While they've each taken their own unique paths during their careers, they've all demonstrated excellence in communications, they've all led by example, and they've all served our nation both inside and outside of government. So to all of our inductees, on behalf of the Secretary of Defense and the entire Department of Defense, congratulations on this well-deserved recognition. We're very proud of you and all honored to call you fellow DINFOS alumni. Let's give each of our class of 2023 Hall of Fame inductees a round of applause. And before we conclude, I'd also like to thank the families and friends of our honorees who are here with us, some of whom are with us today, others who are watching online. Please know that we're very grateful for all of the support that you provide and have provided to enable our honorees to do what they've done so well. Thank you for supporting them, and thank you for supporting our nation's military. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for this opportunity to be here today. It's truly an honor.
Thank you, General Ryder. At this time, we have some unfinished business from last year's Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Will Marine Corps Captain Dale Dye please come forward? General Ryder and Colonel McNorton, will you please join us as well? Captain Dye wasn't able to join us last year, so this is our chance to honor him.
I'm glad to learn that Grip and Grin awards ceremonies are still covered. You know, all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. We have our entrances and our exits, and in his time, every man plays many roles. Thank you, William Shakespeare, and thank you very much, DINFOS, for giving me the tools that I needed to help through popular media, motion pictures and television, to give American audiences and audiences around the world a little insight, a little look at who we really are, what's in our heart, what's in our mind, and what's in our guts. DINFOS, in all its wisdom, taught me how to do that. So thank you very much for that and for my career. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Captain Dye. We will now formally recognize this year's honorees and induct them into the DINFOS Alumni Hall of Fame. We'll begin with Air Force veteran Stacy Pearsall. Ms. Pearsall is the host and producer of the nationally acclaimed PBS series After Action, which explores life for military veterans before, during, and after their service. She joined the Air Force at just 17 years old and went on to become an award-winning photographer and published author. She continues to shoot around the world and is the founder of the Veterans Portrait Project. Ms. Pearsall couldn't be with us today, but sent a recorded message.
Hey everybody, I'm coming to you from the set of After Action, where we are filming season 2. That means I can't be with you in person, but I definitely wanted to drop in and say hello and thank you for the honor. I was gobsmacked when DINFOS told me that I was going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And so naturally I looked up like what the criteria was, and it said you had to be doing something in this field for like 20 years. And then I thought to myself, like, that can't be right. So I asked my husband, I said, do I even look old enough to be in the Hall of Fame? And he emphatically assured me that I did look old enough, a little too emphatically. All joking aside, I have been at it for about 25 and a half years, and I feel like the time has whizzed by. I mean, I remember my first day at DINFOS. The school was brand new, and the floors were high glossy, waxed, vaulted ceilings, and it had that fresh paint smell, mixed in with a little bit of fixer wafting in from the dark rooms. It smelled like promise and hope of the future, and I was ready to learn, and I certainly did. A lot. And I never stopped. After I graduated, I got the opportunity to travel all across the globe with my camera and tell stories. And some of those experiences were the most life-altering that I'll ever have. And it was 10 of the most exhilarating years that I'll never regret either. I did spend the subsequent 15 and a half years trying to figure out what exactly happened and process those experiences too. But I think that's part of life. And I think that's probably what made me a good storyteller, was trying to understand my own experience through others. And I think about it as well that journey, had I not gone to DINFOS, had I not traveled the world and experienced all I did, had I not become a combat photographer, I certainly wouldn't have started the Veterans Portrait Project and traveled to all 50 states. And I certainly wouldn't have my television series After Action on PBS. So in many ways, all of this journey was really what brought me here today. It's almost cyclical. I'm right back where I started, the Defense Information School. So for that, I have to give a big thank you to you, DINFOS, for launching my career, for giving me the foundation I needed to start it, and setting me on a course that I will always be eternally grateful for. For all of my mentors and teachers and battle buddies and friends that I have accumulated over this lifetime, thank you for being there for me, both in service and out. And a huge thank you to my husband for always being there and being supportive as well. And finally, to all of my fellow inductees, congratulations. It's well deserved. Thank you so very much.
Ms. Pearsall plans to visit Dinfos at a later date to accept the honor in person. Our next honoree is retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Tanya Bradsher. She led groundbreaking public affairs efforts for the American Psychiatric Association, Defense Health Agency, the Department of Homeland Security, and the White House. All of that was after a 20-year distinguished career in the Army. She's currently the Chief of Staff for the Department of Veterans Affairs, where she uses her considerable knowledge and experience on behalf of veterans, families, caregivers, and survivors. General Ryder and Colonel McNorton will now formally present the honor. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dinfos 2023 Hall of Fame inductee, retired Army Lieutenant Colonel Tanya Bradsher.
Ladies and gentlemen, General Ryder, Mr. Pittman, Colonel McNorton, Sergeant Major Carden, distinguished guests, fellow honorees and their families, fellow Dinfos alumni and friends, thank you so much for being here today. Being inducted into the Defense Information School Hall of Fame is an absolute honor. This is a moment, a testament to my mentors who saw something in me way before I ever saw it in myself. I am truly grateful for their guidance and support throughout my career. It is humbling to be recognized amongst such talented and accomplished group of individuals. I graduated from Dinfos in July of 2001 and was fortunate enough to be selected to serve as a public affairs joint staff intern at the Pentagon, and it was an incredible experience of listening to lectures from the military's most senior leaders, meeting the other interns, and running errands. However, everything changed 2 months later when American Airlines Flight 77 flew into the Pentagon on September 11th. I remember standing in Captain T. McCreary's office on Wednesday morning, September 12th, with the rest of the Joint Staff Public Affairs team. And that's when he handed out our assignments. And I'll never forget what he told me. He said that intern stuff is over. You're a trained public affairs officer with a TS/SCI clearance, and you'll be assigned to the NMCC. And just like that, I became the most junior officer on staff in the National Military Command Center, working the night shift as the only public affairs officer. I was terrified. But the training I received at Dinfos and Captain McCreary's leadership gave me the confidence I needed to get the job done. I am grateful to Dinfos for providing me such an incredible foundation. Thanks to this school, I met some amazing mentors, lifelong friends like Commander Alyssa Smith. And not only that, Dinfos has certified me to serve as a public affairs professional. Honestly, and I might be a bit biased, but in my opinion, Dinfos is hands down the best school in the entire Department of Defense. Whenever I review resumes of communication professionals, I always perk up when I see that someone was trained at Dinfos. To me, it's a clear indication they have a solid foundation in communications. Just like Command Sergeant Major Ray Cordell would say, and everyone else here, they're Dinfos trained killers. The lessons I learned as a public affairs professional, specifically what I learned here at Dinfos, have been the foundation for both my career in uniform and out. I always try to provide maximum disclosure with minimum delay, which is the ethos that was instilled in me during my time at Dinfos. And although this ethos was meant for our interactions with the press, I believe it applies to all facets of leadership. Sharing relevant information effectively with our bosses, peers, staff, and stakeholders is a principle that I have strived to maintain no matter my role. I stand here today on the shoulders of retired Colonel Richard Breen, Colonel Dave LePan, former Assistant Secretary of Public Affairs Doug Wilson, Clifford Bernat, Colonel Rivers Johnson, Colonel Katie Haddock, Colonel Jeremy Martin, Colonel Gary Tallman, and Brigadier General Henry Huntley, just to name a few. Looking around this room, I see many individuals who have dedicated their lives to the noble and many times challenging profession of public affairs. And I have to point out Terrence Hayes is with me on the VA team now. I feel fortunate to be a part of this community. Before I finish up, I want to take a moment to thank all the public affairs professionals out there. In a world where the truth can be hard to find and misinformation can spread like wildfire, your role in advocating for transparency and accuracy is more important than ever before. Thank you for upholding the standards of the professionalism and embodying the core values instilled in you by DINFOS. Your work is crucial to ensuring that the public stays informed and the truth prevails. I am truly honored to receive this recognition, but I want to make it clear that I couldn't have done it without the guidance of my mentors and inspiration of my colleagues. I am grateful to be joining the ranks of other honorees at DINFOS Hall of Fame and to be standing on the shoulders of those who came before us. Thank you again for this incredible honor. But before you clap, I'm now going to turn to the Chief of Staff of the VA. So, all veterans, raise your hand. Fantastic. We have what's called the PACT Act. It is an amazing opportunity for you to file for your benefits. Please do not tell me, I don't need it, it's not for me. I need you to do this for your family. Please, please look up va.gov/PACT Act. Feel free to grab Terrence and I afterwards, and I'm sorry to use this as a PSA, but I have to because I have a microphone and a podium. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Colonel Bratcher, and I'll be hitting up that website. Retired Air Force Brigadier General, the late H.J. Jerry Dalton, was the first Air Force career public affairs officer promoted to the general officer ranks. During his 30-year Air Force career, he served in a variety of positions during the Korean and Vietnam Wars, including 32 missions as a combat aerial photographer. He also led public affairs planning operations for POW MIA matters. After his military career, he held several senior-level corporate public relations positions. In addition, he was a leader in the Public Relations Society of America and charter member of the Air Force Public Affairs Alumni Association. Further, the award for the top-performing Air Force Public Affairs Team of the Year is named for him. General Ryder and Colonel McNorton will now formally present the honor to General Dalton's daughter, Cindy. Speaking on behalf of the Dalton family is retired Air Force Major Clem Gaines.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. So Cindy and the family asked me to make a few brief comments about General Dalton. I didn't work with him at all, but to do this, I need to tell you a story. In 1980, there was a young, newly minted second lieutenant at K.I. Sawyer Air Force Base in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It was cold. There was a lot of snow. Before this lieutenant went to the Defense Information School, then at Fort Ben Harrison, he watched a videotape from some general in the Pentagon. The general described the public affairs career field as a three-legged milking stool, representing community relations, internal information, and media relations. The general said the responsibility for mission support excellence rested in these areas with the officers, airmen, and civilians in every public affairs office. That lieutenant was me, and 43 years later, I still remember that analogy, although I rather doubt that General Dalton ever sat on a three-legged milking stool. He went on to serve more than 30 years at every level, in base level, major command, and at the Pentagon. Cindy told me last night that when people found out Jerry was in the Air Force, they naturally asked what airplane that he flew. And he said, I flew a desk. And that was a good description, but he did much more than that. As you heard, during his year in Vietnam, he flew 32 combat missions in a variety of aircraft as a combat aerial photographer. He would later serve on the DoD and White House panels for POW and MIA matters. In 1975, he became the first career public affairs officer to reach the rank of general as the Director of Information in the Office of the Secretary of the Air Force. In this capacity, he would provide advice, counsel, strategic planning, projects, and ideas to meet the needs of the Air Force. As a young captain at the PAO at an air base in California, I made a very specific list, thinking of all this, of my duties, and I took it to the wing commander. He was a pilot. He was from Texas. And in his good South Texas drawl, he said to me, "Clam, there's just no one else on this base that could do what you do." That's what Jerry Dalton did for the United States Air Force. At every level, there was no one else who could do the kinds of things and bring the kinds of respect and capabilities that Jerry Dalton brought. Or for those of you who like hiking, General Dalton broke the career field trail, and he showed us the way in terms of the way we should serve and how we should serve as well. So I and multiple generations of officers, civilians, and airmen have benefited from what Jerry Dalton did and the way he broke that trail. On behalf of the Dalton family, his daughter Cindy, brothers Steve and Bob, who both served, by the way, in the Air Force as officers, his 7 grandchildren, and his wife Carolyn, I thank you for the opportunity to induct Jerry Dalton into the DINFOS Hall of Fame. It is an honor.
Thank you, Ms. Dalton and Major Gaines. Marine and Air Force Reserve veteran Glenn Gunny Proctor's distinguished 4-decade career in journalism began at DINFOS in 1977. During his 13 years in the Marine Corps on active duty and in the Air Force Reserve, he was an award-winning journalist with a tour in Vietnam and is the editor of Camp Lejeune's Globe newspaper. On the civilian side, the Gunny's list of accomplishments is long and includes teaching journalism at Kent State University, receiving the National Association of Black Journalists Legacy Award, and sharing in a Pulitzer Prize while at the Akron Beacon. General Ryder and Colonel McNorton will now formally present the honor to DINFOS 2023 Hall of Fame inductee, Glenn Gunny Proctor.
Like Tanya said, she has the mic, I have the mic now. Thank you, DINFOS. This is weird. This is real weird. After a 40-year career, both military and civilian, this is quite an honor. And I thank DINFOS, Mr. Pittman, General, Colonel, Sergeant Major, and the whole DINFOS family for this. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank my support team. I'm honored that my wife Terry and my daughter Amika are here. Also, longtime friends, Christy Plain and her daughter, and Christy and I were at the Louisville Courier-Journal. And one of my best friends in the world, Bill Johnson, and his partner have come down from Philly. Christy and her daughter flew in from Detroit, and as did my daughter from the Philly area, so I'm very, very pleased that they're here with me for this journey. Thank you. And finally, my business partner, Trish Duckbauer, who unfortunately couldn't be here, but she's the one who nominated me for this, and I was her instructor at Kent State back in the aughts somewhere, many moons ago. So I want to thank her publicly for nominating me. And anyone who watched the NFL Hall of Fame induction Saturday, I took something from that, and it reminded me of some of the tools and team spirit that DINFOS gave me to become a public affairs professional. And I thank Master Gunnery Sergeants Painter and Hartranft at the Camp Lejeune Public Affairs Office when I was the editor of the Globe newspaper there, because they were my guides. They were my guides, and 99% of what they told me in support, I listened. The other 1%, well, all you military folks know. But in a big way, this closes my career loop, one that spanned, as I mentioned, 40 years. I started at a small suburban daily outside of Philly, Westchester, Pennsylvania, with no journalism experience, and they too took me on a journey. And then, of course, because I had started my career before I got to DINFOS, because I came back on active duty. And then I had DINFOS, and then I went back into the career field, and I ended my career as the editor-in-chief at the Richmond Times-Dispatch. So very humbled and honored for that career. But back to the Hall of Fame, Hall of Famer Ronde Barber from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, during his speech he said, "My mother told me to play proud." That's the emphasis for today. All of the DINFOS graduates, all of the public relations professionals in our military, and those who are now civilian journalists, play proud. And that's one of the things that I am so, so proud of for all of you. So thank you. But one thing that Ronde Barber emphasized during his speech was teamwork. He did not get the Hall of Fame honor alone. I am standing here on the shoulders of many, my family, my friends, and all the esteemed journalism colleagues that I had both on active duty and as a civilian. And that honor is for all of you and all of them as well. Thank you, DINFOS, for continuing to train some of the world's best journalists, not military journalists, the world's best journalists. And on behalf of my family, my friends, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, thank you, DINFOS, for this prestigious honor. Hoorah!
Thank you, Mr. Proctor. Army veteran Kathleen Rem has spent the majority of her 34-year career on the front lines around the world. She had a distinguished career as a young soldier, which earned her a position with the American Forces Press Service. While there, she was a key part of its transition to a real-time news and feature story organization. In addition to Ms. Rem's award-winning career, she's also been a leader in the Army Public Affairs Association. General Ryder and Colonel McNorton will now formally present the honor to DINFOS 2023 Hall of Fame inductee, Kathleen Rem.
Thank you, Colonel McNorton, General Ryder, Mr. Pittman. Thank you to the members of the Hall of Fame panel and the team of friends and family members who conspired to submit a nomination for me. And thank you to the committee who put on this great event. I do this in my own agency, so I know what goes into it, and you guys did a bang-up job, so thank you. I'd like to thank my family, especially my mother-in-law, Betsy, and my daughter, Monica, who traveled here from California, and my oldest daughter, Maggie, who showed up in the middle of the night last night to surprise me and was downstairs when I came down this morning. She came from Denver, flying in literally in the middle of the night, and I didn't know she was coming, but a couple of you did, so. And my youngest daughter, Lexi, is watching online from Denver as well. My entire team from the Defense Logistics Agency is here, and I'm so excited that you guys could drive up from Fort Belvoir. And countless, there are a lot of dear friends here in the room and watching online, so thank you all so much. It just means so much to me. I owe the most thanks to my husband, Sam. Sam actually traveled to Bosnia to convince me to marry him back in the day. I was working there for NATO, and he showed up one night when I was on guard duty in the CPIC Sarajevo, literally said, "I'm not long distance now, do you believe I'm for real?" And we were engaged a month later, which was 4 months after we met in Macedonia. So we've had quite the adventure. But most importantly, Sam cared for our 3 daughters, while I averaged a week a month out of the country for the 9 years I was with American Forces Press Service, and in the weeks when I didn't come home after 9/11, because we never stopped working at the Pentagon. So he's kept our family together. I love you, honey. Congratulations to my fellow inductees, especially my friend Tanya, who changed my life in 1999 when Captain Bradsher was a personnel officer, and she called me up out of the blue one day and said, told me that they were changing my orders as I was driving to the Defense Information School where I was going to report for instructor duty. She called me, and they had changed my orders en route, and I ended up going to American Forces Press Service in the Pentagon. And she said, but you have to come in and interview because it's a nominative position, so don't get a house yet. So I drove to AFIS headquarters in Alexandria, and I had an interview, and I'm like, well, can you let me know so I know whether we need to live in Maryland or Virginia? And she called me like an hour later, says, oh yeah, we're changing your orders. And so I went to work at AFIS headquarters, then in Old Town Alexandria, and who could possibly have known how much all of our lives would be changed forever just 2 years later. I'm fully in shock to be considered among such notables in our field. When Colonel McNorton called me with the news, I was literally stunned, speechless, and no one has ever accused me of having nothing to say before. So that was remarkable in itself. I don't think I'm a typical person to be up here receiving such an honor. I experienced homelessness as a teenager, and I joined the Army because I literally had no place else to go. And I thought I was too smart to be a waitress at Dixie Truckers' home for the rest of my life. I didn't have a driving passion to be a writer or a communicator. Rather, I became a print journalist because someone offered it to me at the St. Louis MEP station, and it sounded more interesting than the other things that they were throwing at me there. But it turns out I found a passion and a calling and a home in this community for the rest of my life. I can honestly say every good thing that's happened in my life has stemmed from my association with the DoD public affairs community. People who know me know I frequently say I consider myself to be the luckiest person in the world. And since I'm lucky enough to stand before you today and I have the podium, I'm going to share with you an ask of each of you, one piece of professional advice and a personal recommendation. I first entered DINFOS at Fort Bend Harrison when I was 19 years old, and it was the basic journalist course back then. And I'm here to tell you I was an idiot back then. The drill sergeants were all over me, justifiably so. I didn't even graduate with my class. I got recycled in the features section. Gunny Bieber recycled me in Feat 6 the first time I went through DINFOS. But I was lucky enough then to go on to attend 3 more DINFOS courses. And since then, the entirety of my formal education has been through the Defense Information School and the Army NCO Professional Development Program. But along the way, I was blessed with amazing leaders and mentors who supported me, took chances on me, and gave me opportunities to succeed. So my ask of each of you today is to give people a chance to show you what they can do rather than judging them by their past or what you think you know about them. The nugget of advice I have for you is one of my own keys to success over this career in this business. The entirety of my adult life has been as a communicator with the Defense Department. And part of the reason I've been so successful is a little nugget of advice called throw 'em a bone. If you can't do what someone is asking of you, take a moment to think about what else you might be able to do to help them, send them in a more productive direction, or work together on a mutual goal. That's a lesson taught to me by my very first boss and mentor, Larry Eisnagel, who also traveled from the left coast to be here today. Fun fact, 33 years ago this week, PFC Kathy Buin went into work in the Public Affairs Office at the Army War College, and I found this note. KB, by the time you read this, I'll be on the ground in Dhahran. You're in charge. Good luck, Lieutenant Colonel I. Larry Eisnagel was the first of many people in my life who gave me an opportunity to succeed in this field. I also couldn't stand up here and not mention my stalwart colleagues in the American Forces Press Service, which is now the DoD News Service. Jim Garamone, John Benuzowitz, Steve Hara, Jean Harper, Linda Kazarin, Sam Quigley, Donna Miles, Doug Gillert, Sarah Moore, Michael Carden. I'm sorry if I've forgotten anybody, all of whom deserve to be up here as much as or more than I do. I feel like we moved mountains on and following 9/11, and I owe each of you so much. Finally, since the nomination packet mentions some of my volunteer activities, I'd like to touch on that just for a second. And I'd like to ask everyone to consider how you can contribute to the greater good. For me, that's rescue dogs, voting rights, and championing the Army Public Affairs community through our association. My friends call me the PAO puppy pusher because I've helped at least 10 current and former PAOs find forever friends, some more than once. There are 3 of them in this room that I've hooked up matched with rescue dogs. But if you have the capacity, there are as many ways to help somebody in the world as there are people in the world. So I'm asking you, if you can, pick one that works for you. It'll do you and humanity a whole lot of good. And remember, if you need a puppy, I'm your gal. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you, Ms. Rem. Congratulations again to all of our honorees. Let's have another round of applause for the Defense Information School Alumni Hall of Fame, Class of 2023.